the last line of defense. The sky over Atlanta was low and ominous that afternoon, a blanket of clouds simmering with the threat of a storm. The heavy air clung to the city like a warning, thick and restless. On a cracked sidewalk in West End, a woman walked slowly with a cloth bag clutched tightly to her chest. Her name was Loretta James, and she was 71 years old. The fine silver of her hair gleamed in the dull daylight, tied back into a neat bun. Her spine curved ever so slightly under the weight of time and hardship. That bag she held? It wasn't just fabric and thread. It was everything she had. $4,200, withdrawn from the Wells Fargo branch she had visited that morning, the sum of a lifetime of sacrifices, stored in paper form. She had saved every penny over the last 20 years, cleaning houses, working late shifts at a retirement home, and skipping meals just to tuck away one more dollar. It was meant for heart surgery scheduled the following week. This wasn't money for comfort or indulgence. It was for survival. Loretta didn't see the patrol car at first. It didn't roll up with flashing lights or sirens. It slid in silently, turning into the alley she had taken as a shortcut. By the time she noticed, it was too late. The tires screeched. The cruiser blocked her path. Two men stepped out. Officer Carl Mercer was the taller of the two. He had a square jaw, pale eyes, and the self-assured gait of someone who'd never been told no. His partner, Officer Ray Donovan, leaned against the hood of the car, chewing gum with a detached expression, his gaze flickering over Loretta like she was little more than street litter. "You just withdrew a lot of money, didn't you?" Mercer said, stepping forward. Loretta clutched the bag closer. Her voice trembled but didn't break. "It's mine. I saved it for my surgery." Mercer smirked. "Interesting. You expect us to believe a woman like you's just walking around with thousands in cash? That smells like drug money." "I'm not a criminal," she said. "I've never broken a law in my life." Mercer didn't care. He lunged forward, yanked the bag from her grip, tearing the thin straps. Loretta staggered, her balance momentarily lost, her knees threatening to buckle. She tried to grab the bag back, but Mercer raised it high. "Law allows us to seize suspicious currency. Civil asset forfeiture," he said, like it was a phrase he was proud to know. "I can prove it's mine. I have the withdrawal slip. I have records. Please." He opened the bag, grabbed a handful of the bills, and tossed them at her feet. "That's enough to bury you with. Be grateful." Donovan laughed behind him. "You're welcome, ma'am. Just doing our duty." And with that, they were gone. The cruiser peeled away, tires kicking up loose gravel. Loretta was left standing there, broken. The alley around her was still. The only sound was the crinkle of dollar bills landing in puddles. She stood frozen for a long moment, then slowly sank to her knees, the breath gone from her lungs. Her heart beat unsteadily beneath her ribs. With shaking fingers, she reached for her phone and did the one thing she had sworn never to do, call her son. "Terrence," she whispered when he answered. "They took everything." Thousands of miles away, Staff Sergeant Terrence James was on a military base in Kandahar. He was scheduled to return home in 2 weeks. He had endured war zones, ambushes, and insurgent crossfire. But nothing made his blood run cold like the sound of his mother crying. He didn't speak for a moment. Then his voice came, deep and controlled. "I'm coming home, Ma." 3 days later, Terrence landed in Atlanta. He didn't call anyone. He didn't post on social media. He rented a small room on the city's outskirts and began his research. His target, Officer Carl Mercer. It didn't take long to learn who he really was. Mercer had been a cop for 12 years and somehow hadn't a single disciplinary mark on his record. But Terrence knew how these systems worked. A spotless record didn't mean clean hands. It meant protected ones. Digging through old contacts and off-the-record databases, Terrence unearthed incident after incident, complaints from citizens, anonymous tip-offs, excessive force accusations. Most of them were sealed. A few leaked reports pointed to a pattern. All Mercer's victims were minorities. Black men, elderly Hispanic women, refugees. And nothing had ever come of it. But it wasn't just the racism. It was the impunity. Carl Mercer had been rejected from SWAT years ago, cited for lack of composure, poor judgment under stress. And it had eaten him alive. He blamed everyone but himself. Especially soldiers like Terrence who were often held up as public heroes. Terrence knew the type. The bully who never grew out of the sandbox. Give him a badge, and he'd play God with it. Terrence's strategy wasn't brute force. He'd fought guerrilla warfare. He knew the terrain of chaos. Mercer had home court advantage, but Terrence had precision. He made a map of Mercer's movements, tracked his off-duty hours, logged every partner, noted the bar he frequented, the diner he stopped at for breakfast, the car he drove, even his ex-wife's address. Then, Terrence turned his attention to Mercer's partner, Ray Donovan. Donovan was quieter. A follower, not a leader. But followers were just as dangerous when they stood silent while evil happened. Terrence made a choice. Mercer would be exposed. Donovan would be haunted. He paid a visit to Lieutenant Jason Grant, one of the few officers with a reputation for integrity. They had crossed paths years ago at a veteran seminar. Grant had tried reform from the inside but met nothing but resistance. When Terrence laid out the evidence, surveillance, recordings, the incident with his mother, Grant didn't hesitate. "They'll come for you," Grant warned. "Let them," Terrence replied. "I'm not the one hiding anymore." That night, Mercer arrived at the station and found a brown envelope on his desk. Inside, a single photograph of Loretta James, curled on the sidewalk, her money scattered around her. A note beneath it read, "Your reckoning has begun." Mercer laughed when he saw it, tossing it in the trash. But the next day, one of the hitmen he hired to deal with the problem never returned. The next day, another vanished. The city's underbelly had gone quiet. Even the informants Mercer used refused to answer his calls. Word had spread fast. Someone was hunting cops. Not with bullets. With fear. One night, Mercer drove home. The streetlights cut out as he turned onto his block. The darkness was thick, unnatural. Before he could reach for his weapon, the driver's side door was torn open. And there he was, Terrence James. He didn't scream, didn't roar, didn't punch. He simply leaned in. "You like taking from the defenseless?" he asked. "How does it feel?" Mercer lifted his gun, trembling. "Back off. I'm warning you." Terrence vanished into the shadows. Then came a crack, Mercer's wrist snapping under the weight of a grip that felt like iron. Within seconds, he was pinned against the hood of his own cruiser. "I'm not you," Terrence whispered. "If I were, you wouldn't be breathing." He pulled out his phone. Started recording. "You're going to confess." "No way," Mercer hissed. "You won't." Terrence tightened his grip. "I don't bluff." Mercer broke. In front of the camera, he confessed to everything: the robbery, the abuse of power, the people he'd harmed, the money he stole from Loretta James, and worse, that he knew it would never be questioned, that he counted on no one caring. When the video went online, Atlanta exploded. Public outcry. Media frenzy. Community protests. Internal investigations were launched. Mercer was immediately suspended, then arrested. His name became a curse. His face, once hidden behind the smug confidence of a uniform, was now plastered across headlines as a symbol of everything wrong with law enforcement. And then there was Ray Donovan. He watched it all unfold, every second of it. The public didn't just hate Mercer, they despised anyone who stood beside him. Donovan stopped showing up to work. He stopped answering calls. One day he opened his front door and found an envelope sitting on his welcome mat. Inside, a single sentence. "Silence makes you guilty." No name, no threat, just a reminder. Terrence had never raised a hand to Donovan. He didn't need to. The man unraveled on his own, quit the force, left the city. Rumor had it he started working at a gas station in Iowa under a different name. The Atlanta Police Department was forced to reckon with itself. Officers resigned. The mayor formed a civilian oversight board. Grants were allocated for community training and internal reform. But none of that mattered to Loretta James. What mattered was that her son came home, that her surgery was paid for in full, that she survived. Weeks later, she sat with Terrence on the porch of her home, watching kids ride bikes down the newly paved street. "Did you hurt them?" she asked quietly. Terrence didn't answer right away. "No," he finally said, "but I made sure they'll never hurt anyone again." She nodded slowly, sipping her tea. Then she reached out and took his hand. "You did what needed doing." Terrence didn't smile, but he didn't have to. The quiet said everything. And in that silence, Atlanta learned what justice sounded like. Not from a courtroom or a badge, but from a son who refused to let his mother be forgotten.